Okay, it's time for our third of three Campus Connection virtual facility tours. One of the things we really wanted to accomplish this year at this virtual event, because we really didn't want to have to do it virtual for a second consecutive year, but alas, here we are. We wanted to be able to still bring the flavor of campus to you and to take you to campuses and see new control rooms, builds, refurbs. The one we have for you today is really, really, really nice, at least based on the pictures that I've seen. I haven't gone to see it yet, but like I needed another excuse to go visit San Diego. This is a good one. We'd like to welcome to the stage Stephen Calista. He is the assistant AD of video production for University of California, San Diego.
How you doing, going, Steve? Everyone?
Good to see you, man. How are you? Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, appreciate being here. So this has been a project a long time in the making for us. So we're super excited to show it off.
Well, we appreciate you coming on live. And of course, you're here live, not only because we asked you to, but because we want the questions and answers to come from you and the audience. You guys have all funneled in really, really great questions during our first two tours at Temple on Tuesday and Wyoming on Wednesday. So Stephen is here at your disposal to answer any questions that you have as we kind of roll along. But to lay the groundwork, Stephen's put together a really nice video tour to show you everything going on in the new control room. So let's fire that up. And when we come back, we'll take your questions, but feel free to use the Q&A function and pump them in while the tour is going on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Calista, and I am the Assistant AD of Video Production here at UC San Diego in La Jolla, California. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to showing you our control room and all of the work that we have been doing this past year to get our broadcast facility up to Division I standards. Right now, we are standing inside the lobby of REMAC Arena, which hosts our men's and women's basketball programs, as well as our men's and women's volleyball programs. But let's go downstairs and let's take a look at the control room. So welcome to our control room, which we have creatively named Control Room 1. This has been a project that has been near and dear to my heart for the past year and a half, from its concept to its final completion. And this is just one of our control rooms. We have a 2.5 setup, which means we can do 2 simultaneous ESPN streams and 1 non-branded ESPN stream or video board show. The first thing I have to say is that we did partner with Anthony James Partners, AJP, as our consultants, and the good guys over at CTI were our integrators for this project, and through their resources and their recommendations, we were able to build this really impressive facility. I want to start off with saying our control room is a centralized ROS control room. And the reason we wanted to do that is we wanted all of our machines to be able to talk to each other and allow our macro creation to be at its fullest capabilities. Okay, so let's talk about switchers. Right here we have the ROS Carbonite Black Plus. This is the main powerhouse for our control room 1. So this is where we're going to be doing our primary broadcast out of. It allows us to create a lot of macros and allows us to be extremely efficient when it comes to our broadcast and video production. So for graphics, we decided to go with an Expression with version 9.5. And the reason we ended up choosing Expression was because our primary source of streaming was ESPN, and they are the most compatible, honestly, with ESPN. A lot of their projects come in Expression form, so it just made sense for us to upgrade our graphics package as a whole and jump over to Expression. We decided to go with ROS Mira for our replay system, and we actually have 3 ROS Miras. So back to our 2.5 control room build, we have 1 down here in control room 1, we have 1 upstairs in control room 2, and then we have 1 in what we like to call control room 3, which we'll show you in just a second. So now let's talk audio. That was one of the areas here at UC San Diego that we needed to grow in the most. Believe it or not, a couple years ago, our first broadcast didn't really have NAT sound. It just had the play-by-play and the color analyst. So being able to upgrade to a system like this really enhanced our broadcast this year. So we have the Yamaha CL1, and this mixer still blows my mind. I'm still learning a lot of stuff about it. And it's equipped with Dante. So all of our audio here runs through a Dante network. And it absolutely blows my mind that all I really need to plug in is essentially an Ethernet cord. The fact that everything just comes in through Ethernet now, and that I can control all of our Dante sources through the Yamaha CL1 Makes it extremely easy for our operator to fix things. So the main concept of this control room is that it is a centralized control room. I really wanted to have one spot that everybody can come into and work, and it doesn't matter what sport is happening. All of the sports can essentially be done and be broadcasted from one area. I thought it was in my best interest, I thought it was in UC San Diego's best interest to really create a centralized control room and a private network of fiber that goes out to all of our facilities and comes back. And that has been extremely helpful for us this year. So before we go ahead and talk cameras, it's important to know that we are fibered to all of our facilities, and that is how we get all of those feeds essentially back into us. So you may not be able to see, but like right over here, we have just a couple strands of fiber, just a couple. We have about 256 strands of fiber that goes to all of our facilities. This is a massive project and allows us to have a lot of room for growth. So whenever we're sending feeds, whether that be audio or camera, anything coming back, network, all of that gets patched and sent to here to all of our individual facilities. Now let's go ahead and talk our favorite things, which is my favorite things, and that's cameras. So right here we have a Hitachi SKHD 1800 model. And for the lenses, we decided to go with the Fuji 23 times. So this is the whole kit. We have 5 of these that we use as our primary cameras. So we have 3 of these, which have the Fuji 23 times lenses. And then we have one that is also dedicated to a Fuji 55 times box lens. So we use that for essentially our high tights and our baseball outfield camera. But we have these for our standard use. The great things about these was being able to go onto fiber. We're able to pull in nat sound. We're able to have custom shading control. Camera operators were able to get a program feed back into their viewfinder so they can watch in real time with the program. And they were also able to receive program audio through the intercom interface back here. So these are fantastic cameras and were a huge upgrade to us this year. Okay, so moving on to the back end of our control room, and before I showcase all of the fun stuff that's in our engineering section over here, this is where we are able to have custom control over all the cameras, whether they are inside the arena or outside at any other facility. So we can expose, we can auto expose, we can white balance, and we can even set presets here for day to night. And then over here is where we're able to shade our POVs. So we have about 7 Marshall POVs, and those are used throughout all of our venues. One of the items that I think was also extremely fun this year was our Bird Dog PTZ cameras. So we went ahead and we installed a PTZ camera at each of our facilities. We get to essentially get all of our scenics from them. So live weather look-ins, live shots. Sometimes it was even extremely helpful to cross-promote other sport programs. So maybe we are broadcasting a basketball game, but something was happening outside. We could quickly cut to the outside camera for a scenic look-in. So it really enhanced our broadcast, and it really brought a lot of our other sports together. The way the Bird Dog PTZ works is we bring in an NDI feed for monitoring and for controlling of the camera. And then it also gives us an SDI feed, and that is what we integrate into our router and into our production switcher. We did partner with Avion Air, and we created a wireless system. And the benefit of doing that was that we can have one camera that is specifically designated to fans. No matter if you're at baseball, softball, soccer, water polo, you're here in REMAC, they all connect to the same antenna. They have antennas at all those facilities, and that feed will automatically come back into here. Moving on, we have our CCU, our camera control unit. So like I said, we have 5 Hitachis. So these are the 4 units plus the 1 wireless. That gives us our 5. These are 5 wireless readle systems. So these can go out to any of our venues, and they will automatically pick up these belt packs and these signals and come back into our readle intercom system. All of our stations here in REMAC, whether it be Control Room 1 or Control Room 2, are on the readle system. Those are not wireless, but we do have these floating wireless ones that we can use as well. These are some Blue Bell Shacks converters. Turns our CCU patches into single mode fiber to go out to all of our facilities. We have a Rio, Yamaha Rio machine that this essentially converts our XLRs into Dante audios. We can plug in all the XLR mics we want and then patch them back into here, and this will convert that signal to the Dante network to bring into our Yamaha mixer. Down here is our Ross Ultrix router. That thing is the brain of this entire organization. That is what allows us to send and receive any feed anywhere that we want to do. So that really helps Replay to work from upstairs or downstairs. It allows us to really conform this 2.5 broadcast room into one big broadcast room or 3 separate ones if we really wanted to. So over here we have our 0.5 of a control room, or as we like to call it, control room 3. So the idea for this station is for it to be a 1 to 2 person station in order to do any non-branded ESPN streams, or as well as a video board show. And the brain behind this is a Ross graphite. So it's essentially an expression and a baby carbonite, if you will. This is where we also produce right now our water polo events, which are not on ESPN. This is control room 1. This is control room 3. I think if you're doing the math, we're missing one more. So let's go upstairs and take a look at control room 2. So believe it or not, this was our original control room, and this is where we started out and where I started out 2 years ago when I first got hired on here at UC San Diego to take over the video production. We did a lot of renovation this past year to tie this control room in down to our downstairs control room as well as keep some of the equipment we already had. So before we had either of these control rooms, we were able to do about 60 ESPN games, but in order for us to grow, we really needed to combine the 2 control rooms together, and this is what we have. The theory behind this is this has a lot of capabilities, enough to do a full ESPN broadcast, and it's essentially down one row of tables. So right here is where our technical director will sit. We have a Ross Carbonite black that powers this panel, and this is where we're able to do all of our technical directing. Our director will sit here, and this is where they'll be able to look up at the multi-viewer and do all the fun things that directors do. And then over here we have Ross Expression. So this is where our second expression comes in, and they'll be able to work closely with graphics. Over here we have another Yamaha CL1. So this is our second source, and this is super helpful because we can pull in all the same audio sources. Since all the sources live on a Dante network, we can pull them in here as well. And then this is where our replay is. So this is replay 2. This is actually where replay was housed during COVID this year. So like I said, they weren't downstairs, they were up here, and this is where we were able to house them. So enough to do a full ESPN production. You got your replay, your audio, your graphics, your director, your technical director, all essentially right here being able to direct and produce the show. Right over here, we have my desk and engineering station, essentially. So the concept behind this that AJP pitched to me and CTI was able to integrate with me was I wanted a desk and a place where I can sit, but I can also be tied into the production at all times. Being able to take on more of that producer role and being able to have that oversight of all of our productions, this came in super helpful. So once we're back in office and once this is fully operational, I will have a docking station right here, which I will put my laptop in, which can control these 2 monitors over here. And then this monitor over here is able to tie into the production as well. So I'm able to pull in multi-viewers, I can monitor feeds, and I also have network access to all of our broadcast network as well. So if I need to route anything digitally, or if I need to fix or check on the status of anything, I can do that all from this machine right here. And it doesn't matter what control room it's happening in, I have access to it. So thank you for joining us, everyone. On behalf of the video production team here at UC San Diego Athletics, we really appreciate you taking the time to check out all the cool stuff that we've been working on and some of the new technology and gadgets we've been using. Make sure to stick around for the live Q&A afterwards.
Awesome. Just really, really beautiful space. Really appreciate that, Stephen. That was really in depth. Loved it. Appreciate you putting that together for us.
Yeah, no worries.
I
think we ended up recording like an hour and a half. So we had to condense it down to like 13 minutes. That was that was a fun project to do.
We certainly appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So just to recap a couple of things that you might have mentioned in there, but just to put the bows on them. How many sports can you serve out of that room, and how many facilities? Just those numbers of what it can actually support.
Yeah, so it's a 2.5 control room. As of right now, we're broadcasting 10 sports out of either of the control rooms. So the best part about them is you can combine them to do one huge show, or you can separate them into 2 ESPN and 1 other board show if you wanted to for the 2.5. So right now we do men's and women's basketball, men's and women's volleyball, men's and women's soccer, baseball, softball, and then men's and women's water polo as well.
Okay. All right, great. So what was the overall timeline on this? You showed us a little bit of what the old control room looked like when you started working there a couple of years ago. When did this hit your desk as a reality and something that you guys were going to be able to do? And when you started crafting it, I guess what were you most excited about in terms of getting the project going? Can you kind of take us through the timeline?
Yeah, so we decided, I got hired in summer of 2019, and it was fall of 2019 when this project essentially hit our desk. We were already able to do about 60 ESPN events, and I think I had a conversation with our AD, and it quickly came down the table that once we made the transition from Division 2 to Division 1, which we did this past summer, that mostly all of our broadcasts were going to have to go to ESPN, which essentially meant we needed to go from 60 to about 150 plus on the ESPN platform, to which I quickly said, not in this control room. Is that essentially going to be possible? So we started the project in fall of 2019. That's when we started doing the surveying and trying to get everybody on board as to what was going to be happening and what was needed for this control room. And then we ended up completing it in December of 2020 of this past year. So we were able to be fully on board this past spring, which came in at the perfect time as spring sports were, I'm sure, quite hectic for everybody.
Yeah. So I obviously putting last year aside because of the crazy schedules, and you were just opening this thing. So when you look ahead to the next academic year, what would you ballpark the number of events that you think that you're expecting to do out of this thing next academic?
So we're ballparking about 150. So
Okay.
we did 60 this last year, and then we did 70 this spring, essentially. And then we're going to be doing that about 150 next year if we combine fall and spring.
Okay, makes sense. Did you run into any substantial roadblocks blocks along the way? People are always curious, like you have an idea of what it's going to be like when you're going into it, and then all of a sudden, oh, this room doesn't have this, or this space wasn't enough. Was there any roadblocks that you hit along the way, and how did you and the people you were working with overcome them?
Yeah, we hit a ton of roadblocks. I think of with every project. Believe it or not, this room was actually 2 closets, if you will. And the idea was to knock down the wall between those 2 rooms and make it into one big room. I would say the largest roadblock we hit was COVID. I mean, that really put a damper on our timeline. And we really needed to reanalyze construction, who was going to be allowed on campus, when were we going to be able to start. I think things in the university level, in the construction world, they don't happen overnight. So sometimes you can be waiting a week just for a simple signature. Add COVID into that mix, you're waiting 2 weeks for a signature. So that really delayed us, and we kind of hit that block. And it came down to the point where if we didn't know if we were going to have fall sports, and if the control room was going to be up and running at that time, if fall sports were going to happen. So we had to come up with a plan B. We worked with our ITS department to run fiber outside, essentially the ground outside of conduit, and be essentially prepared to do almost a remote production if we need to. However, the Big West made the decision that we weren't going to have fall sports, and to our saving grace, it helped us out a little bit on our end to add a couple months to the timeline. So,
sure. Yeah.
And I see in the chat if there is rear rack access, and there is. So there's 2 doors that open up to the room next to me that opens up for rear rack access. And we have those on both sides. So 2 double wide doors that open up.
Nice. Great. Thanks for picking that question off. Jordan from Utah State also, I just wanted to clarify, when you're talking about splitting boards and ESPN shows simultaneously, are you guys doing video board and ESPN shows simultaneously, which is what I just said, or the ESPN show out of one and the volleyball or the video board show out of one or the others? How do you guys kind of divvy those resources up?
Yeah, so the theory, once we have fans and we're actually able to produce a board show this upcoming year, the way we're going to be doing is our main control room is going to be the primary ESPN show. And then that 0.5, that video board control room is going to be its separate show. So we are splitting those up essentially, and those will be able to produce their own shows. They do share some of the same cameras, but we do, that's one of the reasons for the wireless camera. So the wireless camera will be completely designated to fan engagement, and then we'll start being able to train some students on doing their own replay and their own graphics and their own cutting that's just for the board show. So we'll be able to separate those two.
Cool. And Katie Halter from Elon asks, do you have a central storage system that you import, export melts and other video elements to and from?
Yeah, so if I have to be brutally honest, I would say that is the one thing I overlooked during this process. We have a server that currently exists, but what I underestimated was the amount of storage that we really needed to pull from it and the read and write speed that's going to be required. So believe it or not, I mean, we recorded, I would say, almost 25 to 30 terabytes of data just this year. And that's a lot to handle and to process and to read and write to. So we do have a centralized storage system that is handled by our ITS department that essentially we can network into from all of our devices. And then that gets backed up on the university system essentially every week. And then from there, it goes on to Glacier storage. So those are our three areas. We're currently working on expanding to bring that more local and not necessarily network based, just because we need faster read and write speed.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're running tight on time already. So just wanted to pepper in a couple other quick questions. What were those first few events like? And I know that COVID restrictions and guidelines have obviously been, you can't find too many states other than California where they've been tougher, where they've been stricter. So have you been able to train students? Have you been able to train anyone on this space yet? And if not, will you be able to do that soon? Or did you do virtual training? How are you kind of getting your staff and or students that might work on these shows with you kind of up to speed on the space?
Yeah, so UC San Diego had a really impressive return to learn program and really impressive system when it came to COVID testing. Believe it or not, we actually had COVID testing vending machines outside our control room. So you just swipe your card, it gives you a test, you do your own test, you submit it, and then you get your test results within 12 hours. So we were really fortunate to have a robust testing system in partnership with UC San Diego Health. And Ross was actually, when they came out to do the training on the new systems with a lot of our students and workers, it was one of the first places that they were actually approved to travel to come in and do stuff because of that. So we had a little bit of training essentially in those, but I think as live production goes, a lot of it is, trial by fire, really doing it and putting you into those systems. So because our first game was essentially like 2 days after it being completed.
Wow.
And COVID aside, believe it or not, it was a women's basketball game and it got canceled at halftime because of COVID. So I don't think we were prepared for that. What do you do on ESPN when everyone starts leaving the court and you don't know what's happening?
Wow.
It was a fun experience for us to go through. But now that, we're able to bring people in, we have a centralized control room. We're able to test. We're able to test regularly, but we're also able to train regularly. So we're able to bring people into the control room, maybe Monday through Thursday to do those testing. Where we record camera feeds and play them back on replay so we can mimic real life games and we can train graphics, replay, all that fun stuff. And then the benefit of having two separate control rooms too is we can ghost switch and cut in the second control room. So maybe we only have a couple of people down here. We can also have a couple of people upstairs getting the same sources and feeds and cutting their own show that's just for training purposes.
Nice. That's great. All right, real quickly before we let you go, we've asked all the other speakers, any advice for someone in the audience who maybe is sitting where you were at the beginning of this project? They're getting the chance to renovate a control room or build a new one from scratch. What's a big piece of advice you would give them?
Yeah, I would say definitely start now, trying to understand all the things that you have to do and realize that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Someone else has done it already, and you can definitely reach out for those resources. Coming from a lot of schools that haven't necessarily built a production studio before, they often rely on their one video person who sometimes is also a graphic designer and their social media expert to build their own control room. And that's not necessarily a realistic expectation. So don't be afraid to ask, professional integrators, contractors, or consultants to necessarily help guide you in the right area, as well as other schools. I mean, I cold called a lot of other schools during my time to see how they liked equipment and how things ended up working for them. So it may be overwhelming, but definitely don't do it on your own and rely on the help of others to get you through it.
All right. Well, you're paying it forward here by doing this for our crowd. So we really appreciate that. And I'm sure if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Stephen. I'm sure he will love to talk about his space. But Stephen, we really appreciate you stopping by and doing this for us. Again, thanks for the video. And hopefully we'll get the chance, us at SVG, to come by and see it in person sometime real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. Thank you, everybody.
All right. This and all of the sessions that we've had, the virtual tours, they will be available for you in the audience on demand as registered attendees starting next week. So we'll clean it up, polish it up, and make that available to you. So if you need to rewatch it, share it with someone on your team who needs to see what you guys in the video department are up to, don't hesitate, or don't worry, I should say. We will make this available to you after the fact. Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.